Yes, a very good morning to you. How you doing? It's Sunday, September 22nd, 2019. It's a wet and miserable old morning in Salford in Greater Manchester. Thunderstorms earlier on scaring the living Jesus out of the animals, including mine, including ours. Hope you've had a good weekend. This is Sunday View. Going to take a look through the UK Sunday newspapers with you now. And you can participate, of course, by tweeting the programme. My Twitter handle hasn't changed since the other day. It's at Richie Allen Show on Twitter. Welcome.
Asking the questions mainstream journalists will never ask. This is your Richie Allen Show on richieallen.co.uk, Fab Radio 2 in Manchester, and triggerwarning.tv. It's the Richie Allen Show, broadcasting live on richieallen.co.uk and multiple platforms around the world. And now, here's your host, Richie Allen.
Yes, tens of thousands of people listen to this live every Sunday morning. Isn't that an amazing thing? Thanks for tuning in. This is Sunday View. It's live on Fab Radio 2 in Manchester right now. We're on TuneIn Radio, richieallen.co.uk. And as far as I know, it's on even triggerwarning.tv as well. Welcome to the programme. Loads to get into today. Lots of things happening and going on. So I won't dwell on the pleasantries. And I'll just jump straight into it. I meant what I said. Hope your weekend is relaxing. You're enjoying it. One or two of you tweeting me about the rugby union. I've not been watching it really because I've been preparing this programme, don't you know? But Ireland did beat Scotland apparently in Japan. So, well done Ireland, I suppose. I wouldn't be the biggest rugby union fan of all time, so I won't get too excited about it. I'd be rather hypocritical. I'm a bit cheesed off. Salford went down 4-1 to Crewe yesterday afternoon. And that's left me a bit melancholic this morning. Salford will rise again. But on the flip side of it, the rugby league team is doing quite well. The Salford Red Devils. Castleford next Thursday night. Knockout game. Am I talking sport? I am. I shouldn't be talking sport. Let's go to the front pages. The Sunday Times. Headline is, Loser, Corbyn rocked as key aide walks out. Loser, in inverted commas, Corbyn rocked as key aide walks out. But there's also on the front page of the Sunday Times an exclusive which says Boris overruled officials to take friend on jet set trade missions. And at the Labour Party conference, which has just begun, there is a headline on the Times. It says, Ditch Queen, say Labour members. Momentum, eh? Momentum. What a blithering, blathering bunch of muppet morons. Momentum. Let's get rid of the Queen. Let's get a vote going where we would look at in the future maybe tackling the constitutional question. You know, maybe you should ask your beloved Jeremy Corbyn why he swears allegiance to the Queen and all her heirs before he can enter Parliament, maybe. Before you start talking about getting rid of the old Queen, wretched as she is. So that's a colourful mix of stories on the front page of the Times. But the most important one is, Loser, Corbyn rocked as key aide walks out. What's that about? Well, what's it about? Well, a guy called Andrew Fisher, whom you won't have heard of, he was the man behind Labour's manifesto back in 2017. He wrote a memo to colleagues which got leaked to the Sunday Times. And in the memo, he said he didn't have much faith anymore that Labour would be successful. He said members of Corbyn's team had a lack of professionalism, competence and human decency. He also accused them of making a, quote, blizzard of lies and excuses, end quote, and he claimed the highest ranks of the party were engaged in a class war. Oh, there you go. And he's supposed to be a close aide of Jeremy Corbyn. Now, Labour are indeed, or Labour is, you should say, Richie, is. Labour is in Brighton for the beginning of the party conference. And a short time ago, Jeremy Corbyn appeared on the Andrew Marr show. First of all, on Andrew Fisher's damning memo, Jezza. What say you?
I've obviously seen the words that Andrew wrote, and I discussed them with him at some length immediately. And he is wanting to leave in order to spend time looking after his son and be with his wife and his family, because this is a very stressful and very full-on job. And he is working with us for the rest of this year. He will be here for the general election campaign. He is, as we speak,
he's downstairs.
Yes. He's indeed downstairs. And we had a very convivial cup of coffee together this morning with everybody else in the senior team in my office. And so the idea that there's some kind of, I don't know what you're leading up to here. But I can kind of guess.
I'm literally not leading up to anything. I'm literally going to put you his words: a blizzard of lies and a lack of human decency. Why do you think he said that?
I think he said that because he was extremely distressed at that point about...
Sounds like he was pissed, Andrew Fisher. It sounds like he drank and dialed, but the memo version of drinking and dialing. It sounds like he got absolutely blathered, pissed, and wrote a memo. It was almost like Jerry Maguire, wasn't it? He wrote a memo and clicked on send, and then woke up the following morning going, what did I do that for? Maybe.
Whatever was going on in discussions within the office at that moment. I would have thought similar memos fly around the BBC pretty well every day.
I doubt it. I doubt it. I haven't seen them if they do.
Maybe, Andrew, even in your team.
I doubt it. I haven't seen them yet.
Are you not seeing and knowing?
I'm certainly not. Let me ask, more generally, there is a sense here that all of this...
Can we just deal with Andrew first?
Yeah, okay.
He is a great colleague, a great friend.
Wrote your 2017 manifesto.
Indeed. I've worked with Andrew for 15 years. When I was a backbencher and many other times. He's a great writer, he's a great thinker, and he's done a huge amount of work for the party.
Yeah, but he's just fucked you in the arse, Jeremy. Let's be honest about it. What are you going to do about it? But of course, Corbyn mumbles on.
Party. We get along absolutely very well, and he's promised that whatever happens in the future, he'll be working with me on policy issues. We do, however, frequently argue about football.
About football.
He supports Spurs.
He supports Spurs, does he? Jesus. Now, Fisher, to be fair, has tried to backpedal this morning, it must be said. John Landsman, who's the boss of the fan club Momentum. Momentum is the Jeremy Corbyn fan club. It's full to the brim of crazy Marxist progressive types. The people behind, we must diversify this, we must diversify that. We must ban this, we must ban that. That's what Momentum is, right? Lunatic left. Not even left wing. It's a fascistic movement on the far, far, far left of Labour. They, over the weekend, put a motion to Labour's ruling National Executive calling for Tom Watson, basically for the position held by Tom Watson, he's Labour's deputy leader, for that position to be axed, basically. They don't like Tom Watson because he's taken a number of positions against Jeremy Corbyn in recent times. Nobody likes Tom Watson. How could you like Tom Watson, right? Right. So they tried to get rid of him over the weekend, and the way they tried to do that was basically hilarious. Rather than stab him in the front, metaphorically, of course, we shouldn't joke about knife crime children. Children are dying on the streets of London. It's not funny, Richie. Right, okay, but I'm going to make a joke about knife crime anyway. Rather than stab him in the chest and say, we hate you, Watson, we hate you because you're always going against Jeremy, therefore we're going to get rid of you. They tried to go around the back of him and remove the actual position. Watson said these things happen in Venezuela. Oh, I'd love to have been in the room when Tom Watson said that. Venezuela, Tom, eh? I'd have had to staple my hands to my seats to keep myself from throttling him. Anyway, it failed. Tom Watson is safe. Andrew Marr tried to dig down into it with Jeremy Corbyn. Cue the mumbling.
You have personal faith, complete faith in Tom Watson as your deputy leader.
He's elected deputy leader. He's brilliant at speaking out on the need for reforming the media, which I'm sure you'd be strongly in favour of, as somebody that wants to see plurality in the media.
And you are personally happy for him to carry on as your deputy leader? I get on absolutely fine with Tom. When did you know?
We talk frequently on many matters, including the media and health.
When did you know that there was a move against him at the NEC?
It wasn't a move against him specifically. What it was concerns about the role of deputy leader, and I was not aware that the particular motion was going to be moved at that time, but I knew there were people discussing options, and so when I heard of this, I then proposed a statement to the National Executive yesterday, which I put myself, which was that we should have a consultation about having 2 deputy leaders in the future, which would reflect gender and hopefully ethnic balance within our society, as a way of the party being consulted. Because I don't think we should make rule changes on a whim. I think they should be debated, discussed, and there should be proper notice given of them. So I was just making sure there was a proper democratic process.
Yeah. Corbyn wants there to be 2 deputy leaders, and he wants one of them to be a woman. And his Shadow Chancellor, his longtime friend John McDonnell. McDonnell is leading a group of Labour Party officials, high up and not so high up, who are demanding that the next leader of the Labour Party be a woman. You see, these are the lunatics. It doesn't matter, of course, I'm not being a hypocrite here. It doesn't matter who's in charge of any of these parties. But this is how it's going now. It's just a lunatic asylum. They are saying that they will do everything they can to ensure that the next leader of the Labour Party will be a woman, presuming then that when Corbyn leaves, whenever that is, right, that they will say only women can put themselves forward for the leadership. Jon Snow could emerge out of the UK's north. Jon Snow. Right, a character like that, a uniter of men and women, and they would say no, because it has to be a woman this time. Not the best person for the job, it must be a woman. All of this going on in Brighton at the beginning of the Labour Party conference, when Jeremy Corbyn's approval rating, and this is by Ipsos Mori political monitor poll, this is the Ipsos Mori poll, which is, as far as polls go, fairly reliable, saying he has the lowest net satisfaction rating of any opposition leader since 1977. Basically. 3/4 of people in the UK say they don't like Jeremy Corbyn and the way he is doing his job. And I met a man in a shopping centre in Salford yesterday morning. It doesn't happen all the time, but I met a bloke wearing a Man City shirt who came up to me and recognised me, and we had a chat for a few minutes. And he would describe himself as a socialist. His name is Tom. Good morning, Tom. Man City season ticket holder. How you doing, Tom? He talked about this. And, I asked him about Jeremy Corbyn. And he said to me, Jeremy Corbyn promises a customs union trade agreement, adhering to European Union rules on employment, by saying he would protect workers' rights even. And Corbyn is saying alignment with EU regulations. And Tom said to me, people in this part of the world, and in the northeast, and in the north, and in the far northwest of the country, voted to leave the European Union to get away from all of that. And that is why Corbyn is in such a state in terms of the national polls. A desperately awful human being, Jeremy Corbyn. A social democrat, not a socialist, will never do what's right for the people of the country, will never stand up for people's right to speak freely, to think freely. This is the guy who capitulated in the face of spurious and false allegations of anti-Semitism by the Zionist lobby in the UK. Absolutely dreadful human being. In every sense of the word. I don't care if his brother's listening, who's been on the programme many times and who does listen. He is a wretched human being. God only knows what the intelligence agencies have on Jeremy Corbyn. Who knows? Who knows? The Sunday Telegraph, hard left plans for life after Corbyn. And this is a story in the Telegraph that alleges that Corbyn's allies have begun to prepare for the inevitability of his departure, and Momentum are heavily involved in this so that they can secure so basically if Corbyn goes, they can put another so-called hard left man or woman, well, it'll be a woman, in place of Jeremy Corbyn. Rebecca Long-Bailey is one they're talking about a lot this morning. Angela Rayner is another one. Right? Lunacy. It's a lunatic asylum. The Mail on Sunday runs a story, grieving Mavis locked up in police cell for 80 hours in her 90. A woman has been accused, she was cleared, in fact, of murdering her dying husband in a mercy killing. And she's been telling the Mail on Sunday that when she was arrested on suspicion of assisting her dying husband to die, that she suffered a series of indignities at the hands of the police. She's saying that she was held in a police cell for 30 hours and she was held for 80 hours in total and wasn't allowed to change into clothes, that she was kept in her nightie. That's in the Mail on Sunday. Sunday Express goes with Farage, delay could force clean break Brexit. This is the claim by Farage that any delay to Brexit will force Boris Johnson, to adopt his clean break policy and abandon all hope of a deal. I won't kill you with too much Brexit this morning, but just to say, Sky's Sophie Ridge, she presents their Sunday morning programme, had an interview with the EU Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker, and it started off very promising, did the interview, because Ridge wanted to ask Juncker about no-deal Brexit and what would happen after a no-deal Brexit. Now, I got very excited when Ridge started off with what would happen in the event of a no-deal. I got brilliant. Finally, somebody's asking one of these people. My excitement didn't last long. This is Ridge and Jean-Claude Juncker. That interview broadcast this morning, but I believe Ridge did the interview on Thursday in Brussels. Here we go.
I want to just look for a minute at what happens if Britain leaves without a deal. Would there be a border between Ireland, Northern Ireland and the Republic?
No, Sophie. The question is, in the event of no deal, would the European Union impose punitive tariffs on UK goods, right? Right, come on, woman. That's the question. In the event of no deal, would the European Union impose punitive tariffs on UK goods? Why do UK-based journalists refuse to ask people like Jean-Claude Juncker that particular question? I'll tell you why. Because he'd have to answer it. Because he would have to say yes. You see, a real journalist would say, right, what are you going to do in the event of no deal Brexit? What are you going to do about tariffs? He would have to say, presumably, well, we would have to impose tariffs because the UK wouldn't be in the single market. And she would say, well, you'd lose that war, wouldn't you, Jean-Claude? On account of the trade deficit between the continent and between the UK. Anyway, what was his answer? Does no deal mean a border in Ireland?
Yes.
There would be a border.
Yes.
And what would that mean?
The British have to tell us exactly the architectural nature of this border. I don't like that border because after the Good Friday Agreement, and this Friday agreement has to be respected in all its parts, the situation in Ireland has improved. We should not play with this.
Yeah, nonsense. There is no danger of any return to the tensions that we saw in Ireland for decades. No danger of that at all. There's no danger that if there was a border, a customs border between Ireland and the UK on the six-county border, there's no danger that people would suddenly lose their effing minds and return to the sectarian, I don't know, habits, for want of a better word, of the past. It's a nonsense. What this whole backstop thing does, one of the things it does, and it's just begun to dawn on me, it allows them to sidestep any discussion about tariffs and punishing the UK for leaving. Because, as I said, the journalist would then say to Juncker and to Tusk and von der Leyen and all the rest of them, listen, don't start with the you'll put tariffs on the UK goods nonsense because, well, we'll do it as well. You see what's happening here? Not too much more Brexit today. It's coming up for 20 minutes or 19 minutes even past the hour. Sunday View for Sunday, September 22nd, 2019. A miserable old day it is. But she did manage to get under his skin, though, did Sophie Ridge, speaking to EU Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker. She did so by bringing up the notion that the European Union is anti-democratic. Ridge says, she says to him, the way Boris Johnson was treated last week by the Prime Minister of Luxembourg, Xavier Bettel, and the way Boris Johnson was treated by Jean-Claude Juncker as well, only reaffirms for folks in the UK that we should get out because it is an arrogant, undemocratic, fascist super state. Ridge doesn't put it quite like that, but it riles old Juncker, so it does.
For many people in Britain, it really sums up why they have an issue with the EU, what they don't like about the EU, what is perceived as an arrogant treatment of the United Kingdom.
I don't know if this was arrogant, it was not necessary. And I do think that the feeling you are describing existed even before the visit of Boris Johnson to Luxembourg.
And actually, for some people, you are the face of what they have a problem with the EU. But they see you as the Brussels bogeyman, unaccountable, unelected.
You cannot... That's a typical British lie.
What is it?
I'm elected by the European Parliament.
I'm elected by the European Parliament, says Jean-Claude Juncker. Keep that in mind. It's at this point now that Sophie Ridge should jump right down his throat. I'm elected. It's a British lie to say it's undemocratic, he said. I am elected by the European Parliament. Keep that in mind.
Parliament.
And what does it make you feel?
Too.
Does it make you feel angry?
Does it make you feel angry? Again, wretched, useless presenter. Jump down his throat and explain to him why he is not elected by the EU Parliament. Tell him to his face, no, you're not, and explain to your viewers why that is the case, but she doesn't do it.
It exists in Westminster. The European Parliament was voting on me and was voting on the Commission. I was a Prime Minister for 19 years. I have 3 or 4 other Prime Ministers in my team. I have so many former Ministers of Foreign Affairs or Defence. Everyone, apart the British Commissioner, has been elected. Someone, somewhere, someday. So stop this nonsense, this Farage nonsense.
Stop this Farage nonsense. Again, he is basically, how do I say this? He is directly challenging the interviewer, which is Sophie Ridge, by telling her to stop this nonsense. That it is democratic. I was elected and the Commission was elected. I was elected by Parliament, he said. Now, either Ridge doesn't know, which I strongly doubt. Whatever Ridge is, I've no idea. She's a former smut reporter for The Sun. That's how she got her start. But she must know the truth about how Juncker came to be the Commission president. And she allows him to bully her in the interview and doesn't say, well, hang on a second.
Does it make you angry?
Does it make it angry, she asks him again.
No, but I'm no longer in a mood to listen to these stories that we are unelected, putschists, unreasonable guys. We are there where we are because people put us there.
No, they didn't. He's a liar. He's a fucking liar. Yes, nationally, people get to vote for their own prime ministers and presidents in Europe. And those elected leaders in Europe make up the basis of the council, mostly, not just EU leaders. There's 30 members on the council. The council proposes the president of the Commission. The Parliament doesn't vote on him. The Parliament approves him. But they don't have a choice. They don't get a handful of people. Well, here's 10 people. Go and pick a EU Commission president from one of those. The president is appointed by the Commission. And the Parliament, which is ceremonial, which is window dressing basically, to convince the 700, 800, how many million people living in Europe, to convince them by having a parliament is to convince people that it is a democratic institution. It isn't. It isn't, of course. It couldn't be any more undemocratic. Proposed by the European Council, Jean-Claude Juncker, and then okayed by the EU Parliament, which doesn't have any choice. That's how it works. And how does he get to be chosen by the council? You see, what about the civil servants and the massive multinational companies they work for, people whose names you don't even know? There are thousands of them. One estimate, 20,000 of them in Brussels. This is how it works. And Ridge allowed him get away with that. She allowed him basically challenge her, almost threaten her with the language he was using about not using terms like undemocratic. And Ridge came back with, "What does that make you angry?" I don't know. Maybe in some parallel universe, somebody like me is interviewing Jean-Claude Juncker and humiliating him. Maybe. Maybe we are in a multiverse. Maybe somewhere in the room where I can't see it, I'm sitting down with Jean-Claude Juncker, tearing strips off the guy. I'd like to think that. It's wretched. It's wretched performance by a woman in a position like that, broadcasting live on Sky News on a Sunday morning, to allow herself to be bullied by a fascist like Jean-Claude Juncker. Dreadful stuff. 25 minutes past the hour. The Star headline today is Diana, the New Evidence. I haven't read it, so I can't get into it, but apparently some driver or somebody who knew Diana has spoken to the Star and has said something about the murder of Princess Diana. I don't know what it is, I didn't get into it. The Observer newspaper goes with Labour plunges into Brexit chaos, just more of the same. The Sunday Mirror goes with Corbyn, we need 2 deputies and we must have a woman because of our diversity. We're going to take a musical break. When I come back, I'll read your tweets and then we'll talk a little bit about Thomas Cook, which is a big story, and it's not connecting today. It serves as a great example of why the European Union shouldn't exist and the sway that the European Union holds over so-called sovereign nations within the bloc. Okay, I could have put that a little bit better, but we'll look. It's a great analogy. What's happening with Thomas Cook? A great analogy as to why the European Union is this fascistic, corporate-controlled, undemocratic superstate that I've called it a million times. Right, okay. Anyway, this is Sunday View. I am Richie Allen. This is Europe's most listened to independent radio show. It sure is. I will read your comments when we come back. We'll talk about Thomas Cook, then we'll talk about more besides. A bit of transgender madness in the papers as well. Welcome to the programme. Right, that was Steve Earle, Even When I'm Blue on the Richie Allen Show. It's Sunday View, it's half past the hour, Sunday morning, the 22nd of September, 2019 it is, of course it is. Welcome to the programme. Hi to Belle Walsh, how you doing, Belle? Nice to know you're up and listening to the programme this morning. To Tom Morris as well, how you doing, Tom? To David as well. Everybody tweeting to William. William is not saying much about the rugby. Don't worry about it, William, I'm not going to get into the rugby. Hi to Patrick Vidian as well, who's listening to the programme. Base Ninja, Cartoon Drunk is listening as well. Lots of comments on there. James, Ricky Emmett, John Connor, Chris Morell. Chris says he was duped when Corbyn became leader. I wasn't duped, Chris. It doesn't mean I've got any more intellect than you do. I don't, and I don't think that. But I've known this for a long time. It's not easy to come to terms with it. The knowledge that it doesn't matter who it is or what they say. It never matters. And that's a difficult thing for most people to process, to compute, and to understand and to accept. Seriously. Yes. Lovely. Hi to Gail in Cornwall. Hashtag rain is trending in the UK this morning because it's raining everywhere apparently. It is raining everywhere. Let's talk about Thomas Cook. This is important. It's an important story, this. 9,000 jobs are at stake, and that's not funny. It's going to hold crisis talks this morning. Thomas Cook is the travel operator, and it's trying to secure a rescue package. It's in dire straits. It's meeting its biggest shareholder and its creditors, and it's happening this morning at a law firm called Slaughter and May. Jesus wept. Slaughter and May law firm is hosting Thomas Cook, its biggest shareholder, and its creditors. The tour operator might end up in administration in the next couple of days. It needs to find £200 million. The government has been urged to step in to bail the company out, and there are fears this morning that about 150,000 UK tourists could be stranded in Europe and elsewhere. Customers have been reminded on social media that they do have atoll protection. That's a fund paid for through industry levies. And the atoll protection will cover them in the event that Thomas Cook does go into administration. But 9,000 jobs are at risk. This is no joke. The Foreign Secretary is a guy called Dominic Raab, and he was on the Andrew Marr Show 2 this morning, and he gave his thoughts on what's happening at Thomas Cook. Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab.
Well, I don't want to talk in advance of the meeting of creditors that is taking place this morning to preempt or interfere in any of that. Obviously, the Department for Transport, the Civil Aviation Authority is following it very carefully. We would wait to see and hope that it can continue, but in any event, as you'll expect, we've got the contingency planning in place to make sure that in any worst case scenario, we can support all of those who might otherwise be stranded. But I don't want to say too much more given those meetings are ongoing.
I suppose the only thing I'm asking is whether there is government money available to help the company or not.
Well, as I said, we don't systematically step in with the taxpayers' money when businesses are going under unless there's a good strategic national interest for doing so. But I don't want to undermine the talks that are going on. We'd love to see it continue as a going concern, but obviously people want to know that there's some reassurance that the contingency planning has been done, and of course we're doing that.
Dominic Raab, right? So Mar wanted to dig down on what exactly is being done to protect people and to get them home, fly them home effectively.
I suppose that in terms of national emergencies and so forth, 150,000 people stuck abroad is a pretty big one. This would be the biggest single civilian repatriation since the war. Have you got the planes? Have you got the plans to make it work? And just tell us a little bit about how you're going to do it.
Well, I'm not going to allow this to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. We want to wait for that meeting to progress and see where we are. But the assurance I can give you is that right the way across government, from the Department for Transport, the Civil Aviation Authority, we're making sure that all of the contingency planning is in place. Of course, the Foreign Office would be involved in that because we've got consular authorities and people that can assist with that. And you'll remember the collapse of Monarch back in 2017. Obviously, we've learned a lot of the lessons from that as well.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. Dominic Raab there. That was Dominic Raab, right? So, yeah, we've got contingency plans. I can't say too much. Blah, blah, blah. Now, Thomas Cook workers are members of the Transport Salaried Staff Association. That's like a union. The Transport Salaried Staff Association. And their representative is a guy called Manuel Coates. And Manuel Coates is pissed right off. And he wonders why the government doesn't step in to bail out Thomas Cook and to save 9,000 jobs.
Very clear that whatever happens, Thomas Cook needs to survive. It's not just 9,000 jobs that are on the line. It's also 150,000 people who are currently enjoying a holiday who are going to be severely disrupted. And if you remove Thomas Cook from our high street, after what's been happening over the last few decades, where there has been great consolidation, there's going to only be one major player when it comes to mass holiday market. And that means, frankly, the prices are going to go up. There will only be two left on our high street. So Thomas Cook needs to be saved.
Thomas Cook needs to be saved, 9,000 jobs. It is put to him by the Sky News presenter Stephen Dixon. Is it outdated? Is it an old-fashioned business model? Are people doing things online? The high street is suffering anyway because of footfall declining or decreasing. Old-fashioned model. What does Manuel Coates say?
I have seen estimates of how much it's going to cost to repatriate the 150,000 people who are currently on holiday. They range from over 100 million to 600 million.
He says there are estimates out there that if 150,000 people need to be flown home, and if the government has to pick up some of that tab because maybe at all the insurance doesn't cover all of it, he says he's seen estimates that reach as high as 600 million. So why not just give the company the 200 million it needs, maybe even give it a loan of 200 million at a very low interest. Now, he doesn't say that, but I would say that. Why wouldn't the government say, I'll tell you what, it's a great business. By the way, the future Mrs. Allen and I, the very first time we went anywhere together, not long after we got together 17 years ago, we used Thomas Cook, and it was a delight. It's a great company with a great reputation. It was terrific dealing with them. They put together a lovely week for us away in Spain, and it was fantastic. Everything was amazing. The transfers, the hotel, everything for a very low price. It was lovely. Very good people. 9,000 people. So I would say, why wouldn't the government just say, Rob, we'll give you 200 million quid and we'll give it you at, well, we'll give it you at 1.5%. We'll see how you get on. Off you go, on your bike. Right.
It's only going to take 200 million to save the company.
Yes, 200 million to save the company.
And it's actually not 200 million that is going to be spent in any way, shape or form. They are looking for some kind of insurance in case the winter season is not very productive for Thomas Cook. So actually this 200 million pounds that is being asked for might not be used at all. But let's not forget, the people pulling the plug on this are the banks. These are the very same banks that we as taxpayers bailed down.
Yes!
Billions upon billions upon billions. This is quite a small amount, 200 million to keep 9,000 jobs. I think that is a price worth paying.
Oh, of course it's a price worth paying. The bastard banks, Manuel, yes. And of course they couldn't wait to get him off the programme once he started talking about the banks. I remember many years ago interviewing Steve Keane, the accountant, and Steve Keane was the first person to say to me, Richie, why are we not bailing out people? Yeah. Why are we bailing out banks, Richie? We're not bailing out banks that have fallen into debt because of bad luck or because of a bad economy. We're bailing out failing banks, banks that have failed because of casino banking, because of fraud, because of exotic, wretched fucking products sold to investors, subprime lending, theft. I could be here all day. Gangsters. Massive property grab by the banks. Right? The banks were bailed out, not people. And the effing banks have pulled the plug on Thomas Cook now, with the risk of 9,000 jobs. So he's asking, is Manuel Coates, why can't the government sort the jobs out? Because if the truth be told, it isn't just the lack of footfall on the high street that has caused Thomas Cook to be worried about the possibility it can't meet its debts. It is the unbelievably warm summer we had last year, which is not climate change, by the way. We have one every now and then. We had a heat wave. Numbers were down massively right across the industry. That's affected the company. The summer we had here last year, where people stayed at home. And they're worried about a difficult winter. So we need a couple of £100 million. Kind of a bridging loan, basically. Why can't the government give it to us? Well, the government won't give it to them because of European Union rules on state aid. Yes, that's right. The European Union explicitly forbids sovereign states like the United Kingdom saving 9,000 jobs by saying to Thomas Cook, listen, we won't give you the money for keepsies. We'll give it to you at 1.5% or 2%. And we won't send leg breakers around. We'll watch it closely and we'll see how you get on. But it's important that 9,000 people stay in fucking work. Because if 9,000 people are not in work, that might cost the government £1 billion. Did they think of that this morning on Sky News? No, they didn't. If 9,000 people are all of a sudden, they're not all based in the UK, the 9,000. Okay, I'm not stupid. But let's say 5,000 people are out of work. And they need benefits, which they'll be entitled to because they've paid national insurance contributions. All of a sudden, you've got to find that money. So we'll give you the money, we'll keep those people at work, and Thomas Cook is an institution. It's a great British brand. But no. And you know what was very interesting this morning? Andrew Marr never asked Jeremy, I am a socialist, I'm not, I'm a fucking creep, Corbyn. That question. It never came up in the interview because Corbyn would have been put on the spot. The BBC don't want to do that. Right? BBC is pro-European Union to its core. John Humphrey. Wouldn't you like to grab John Humphrey and shake the false teeth out of his effing head? John Humphrey, one-time presenter of the Today Show. Very famous Radio 4 breakfast radio programme. Humphrey has presented it for 40 years. He retires, does Humphrey, does his last show last week, and all of a sudden he's coming out talking about the bias at the BBC. The pro-European Union bias at the BBC. You lousy bastard, John. Huh? You waited for your gold watch, you waited for your big payoff, you waited for the big deal for your memoirs, and then when it's all said and done, you come out and you say, yeah, the BBC is biased. Well, what the fuck did you do about it, John? In the 40 years you were there? So the BBC doesn't say to Corbyn this morning, hey Jeremy, what would you do for Thomas Cook? Because Corbyn doesn't want to answer that question. Because the answer is, Corbyn would say nothing, because Corbyn ain't a socialist. Not now, not tomorrow, not yesterday, not 3 weeks ago. Sick. We live in a sick world. That is why the government won't intervene. It can't. It isn't allowed. Imagine it. Who says you're not allowed? Brussels. What? Yeah, Brussels. You're not allowed to bail out. This is the same Brussels that gives financial inducements for companies in the UK to leave the UK and to go to to more favourable, in terms of tax laws, to more favourable countries inside the European Union. Yeah. Google that. I know you don't believe it. I know there are people who listen to this and they don't believe it. Yes, the European Union has enabled, in the last 10 years, dozens of companies in this country to leave this country and to go to Eastern Europe to set up their shop. And the European Union has given them financial grants to do that. I'm not going to educate you. Get onto a search engine and look it up, and you'll see those stories in the British national newspapers. This is the European Union. 9,000 jobs. Maybe 5,000 or 6,000 inside the UK, gone like that because they won't give a loan to Thomas Cook. But we bailed out the banks. The banks wrecked people's lives, drove people to suicide. They broke every law ever made by mankind. Fucked people, stole their land, stole their houses, and they were bailed out. One economist on planet Earth, Steve Keen, said, why aren't we bailing the people out? Why aren't we forgiving all the debts of people? Fuck the banks, let the banks fail, fuck them, and new banks will form, and we will ride roughshod over those new banks to make sure that they behave ethically, said Steve Keen at the time. Bailed out these banks, and now the banks are pulling the plug on Thomas Cook right now. It's a political decision. It's not because of the changing market. It's not because business models are changing, because people are going, yes, of course it's affecting the high street, people going online, but not in this case. An unbelievably hot summer last year, a winter that was down on previous winters, has left Thomas Cook thinking, shit, we might be in the shit here. Yeah. Drives me mad. Oh, Jeremy Corbyn. Fuck off, is what I would say. 14 and a half minutes to the top of the hour. Where are we going next? So Labour is in Brighton, pledging to abolish prescription charges if it wins the next election. Prescriptions are free in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. In England we pay £9 per item. When I say we pay £9, we don't. I do. I pay £9 per item. But the vast majority of people don't. More than 80% of prescriptions in England are given free because people can't afford them. Anyway, so people like me, I don't get very many prescriptions. I get a salbutamol inhaler once every now and then, and I pay for it £9. I used to get proton pump medicine for my stomach, not anymore. They give it to me, but I don't take it. I've got it. I've had some for months now. I don't use it. And I pay for it because I can afford to pay. Right, I'm not wealthy, as you well know, but I can afford to pay £9 once every 2 months. But more than 80% of people already get their prescriptions for free. So what's this all about? Just bullshit from John Ashworth. He's the Labour Shadow Health Secretary. If we get in, nobody will pay for prescriptions in England, he says. He explains why to Sophie Ridge.
I've been looking at the way in which prescriptions are delivered in England. And actually, prescriptions are now free in Scotland. They're free in Wales, they're free in Northern Ireland. So I think the people of England need the same deal. I think it would be fair to abolish prescription charges now in England as well. And that's what I'm announcing today at the Labour Party conference.
So how much would this cost and how would you pay for it?
Well, we've allocated in our plans around £745 million for it. And actually, when we get closer to the general election, we'll outline our full financial plans for the NHS. But, you know, politics is about choices, right? And this is a government that has chosen to give away billions in tax cuts to the very wealthiest of estates, with big inheritance tax cuts, billions in tax cuts in corporation tax. And actually, yes, there is a cost to this, but when you've got a situation where a third of people, because they cannot afford their prescriptions, are not picking them up, a third of people with arthritis are not picking up their prescriptions because they can't afford it, when you've got a situation where people with asthma foregoing inhalers. There was a heartbreaking story of a young woman of 19 who died because she couldn't afford her inhaler for asthma. I think abolishing prescription charges is the fair thing to do. They do it in Scotland, they do it in Wales. I don't understand why the Tory government isn't giving the English people the same deal that the people of Wales and Scotland have got.
Hang on a minute, because look, everyone would like free prescriptions, right?
I would like them.
Everyone would like them.
I would like them. I would like them, says John Ashworth. Would you? What about costing it? How much is it going to cost?
Well, we are going to outline our tax and spending
So you
plans.
don't know yet?
No,
Tax and spend, tax and spend. We call ourselves socialists, and then we say tax and spend. We're going to tax the fucking bejesus out of middle income earners in the country who are screwed to the wall anyway. That's what we're going to do. Going to screw you. That's what we do. That's what Social Democrats do. We're going to screw you. And that's how we're going to pay for it. And if we screw you and we still don't have enough money to pay for the free prescriptions, we're going to borrow it from a central bank or issue government bonds to people. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. And of course...
We are working on these, and John McDonnell will come forward like he did at the last general election. We were the only party at the last general election who produced a detailed costings plan of each and every policy.
But this is
and
this
at the next
specific
general
policy
election,
that you're announcing, and you haven't worked out how you're going to fund it.
At the next general election, John McDonnell will outline an itemised spending plan for each and every policy in the same way he did at the last general election. But by the way, there is a immediate cost to this, but you've got a situation now where people are not taking their medicines and are getting iller, and that puts more pressure on the NHS.
What a load of bollocks. 11 minutes to the top of the hour. It's a non-issue that Jean Ann makes an excellent... and she's not saying this, Jean Ann, my great friend and colleague. She's not saying this to be true, but she wonders about Thomas Cook and wonders, is it connected to a plan in the near future to ground us, to ground most of us, you know, to curtail our travelling around Europe and around the world. I think it's a very interesting thought, that, and you know, she might not be wrong. I mean, Manuel Coate says you're left then with only one provider really on the UK's high streets. That's TUI, or TUI I would have called them. It's a very interesting one. Rationing flights, carbon neutral. All of a sudden Thomas Cook is in trouble. She's not saying it to be true, Jean Ann. She's just positing it. And it's an interesting one. It's a hypothesis. And I had a message there from somebody called Large Become Small. It's Louise. How you doing, Louise? Louise says, Richie, I worked for Thomas Cook for 7 years and they were like a family to me and supported me when I needed help. I'm devastated to hear the news. And I'll tell you something else. I did a bit of research this morning. Thomas Cook has had forever a fantastic reputation at dealing with customer complaints. Forever. It has. It's had a terrific reputation for when people are pissed off or they feel that they've been missold something or something hasn't gone well. Their reputation for handling those complaints is excellent. It's an institution, Thomas Cook, isn't it? 9,000 jobs at stake, 200 million quid. But the European Union says no. It's not that the bank says no, it's the European Union. I'll be back in about 60 seconds. Don't go anywhere.
Renowned healer Mark Bayersky travels the world to find the most unique and powerful crystals for self-healing. Since the ancient times, crystals have been used as healing tools. They hold a natural healing vibration and are highly charged in positive energy. Mark teaches how to channel the universal energy and transfer it to the crystal to activate its healing power. Each crystal is used for its unique ability to target a different physical or emotional challenge. Mark Bayersky is an author, healer, speaker, and founder of the Pure Energy Healing Academy. He shares powerful messages of inspiration and healing on his daily YouTube videos, reaching millions worldwide. Mark's crystals, healing oils, and incense sticks are most sought after by other healers. His collection is available online at www.markbayersky.com. His work is presented through Lemon House, a company that creates and curates consciously made gifts.
The Richie Allen Show relies on your support. Go to richieallen.co.uk and set up a monthly donation today.
Welcome back to the programme. Jason says, Richie, it does make you wonder whether all the issues with checking in and cancelled flights of late is a deliberate attempt to chip away at people's desire to fly. That's an interesting thought, Jason. Cartoon Drunk says, omeprazole proton pump inhibitor is available without prescription now. Indeed it is, but it costs a fortune from pharmacies. Ritidine is a similar drug. It's cheaper and available from some supermarkets now, says Cartoon Drunk. Yeah, it is cheaper. There are a number of reasons why people should avoid using omeprazole. I'm not going to get into it now, but I maybe should do a programme on it, because apparently millions of people in the country are taking these drugs for reflux or for duodenal ulcer, and they're not proven to be safe. So we'll get into that in another programme. And finally today, thanks for tuning in, by the way. This is Sunday View, and I am Richie Allen. Thanks for joining me today. Love chatting with you Sunday mornings, especially miserable mornings like this particular morning. There is a story in the Mail on Sunday. It's a little bit disturbing, I think. Mother of one of Britain's youngest transgender toddlers hits back at critics who say that her son was too young to become a girl. Her son is 3 years old and is now a girl. Luna Schofield asked to be a girl every Christmas and for every birthday present. I don't know how that works if the child is 3. The child must have been very, very advanced at aged 1.5 and 2 to be asking to become a girl. But the mother, Janine, is a NHS worker, and this is featured in the Mail on Sunday today, says that Luna has identified as a girl since 3, and alright, that's how it is, 3, and the mother, Janine, has supported the child throughout the journey. Luna was born biologically male, asked to be a girl for every Christmas and birthday present, and last year her wish came true when her name was changed by deed poll, aged 7. So the child was her name was changed, his name was changed when he was 7 to Luna, and he was sent to school wearing a skirt and has been given a new passport and has been confirmed as one of Britain's youngest transgender children. The mother is an NHS worker, speaking to the Sunday Mirror, said, "My family felt she was too young to make the decision to be a girl, but I didn't want to tell her how she should feel, and I knew this wasn't going away." And after a few weeks at school, age 7, Janine asked to speak to the teacher after Luna wanted to dress as Alice in Wonderland for World Book Day. They spoke to the teacher about the gender identity. The teacher said, yes, that's okay. And Bob's your uncle. Top doctors, including TV's Dr. Raj Prasad, have advised against assigning the transgender label before puberty, but Janine said that she couldn't let Luna live a lie and took the child to Liverpool Pride as well. And there's a number of stories about this in the media this morning, but I won't get into it in any great depth because in any case we're running out of time, but I will be returning to that issue this week in the programme, in the radio programme, which of course broadcasts every day at 5 p.m. UK time on Fab Radio 2, richieallen.co.uk, TuneIn Radio, triggerwarning.tv and multiple other platforms as well. So that's about it for Sunday View today. Thanks for listening to the programme. We'll watch that Thomas Cook story with great interest. Not a word from the Labour Party on it this morning. The party of the people. 9,000 jobs at stake. Not a dicky bird from the so-called Socialist Party, the Labour Party. But I'm sure it'll come up tomorrow. I'll be back with you at 9:30 even tomorrow morning, Monday, for the newspaper review programme on YouTube. That's youtube.com/Richie Allen Show. If you haven't seen that before, it's a very irreverent take on the news. It's not very serious. And the Richie Allen Radio Show live Monday to Thursday at 5 o'clock UK time on the usual channels, the ones I've just mentioned. Have a terrific Sunday. Enjoy your Sunday. And try and disconnect as best as you can. Bit of foosball on today. The weather is so bad I think we'll be staying indoors. I'm not sure though. I kind of want to get out. We'll see how it goes. We might get out for a bit. Going to leave you with Mark Ronson. I know this pisses a lot of my listeners off because it's definitely a nick from Jolene by Dolly Parton. It's definitely a nick from Dolly Parton's Jolene, but we don't mind. See you tomorrow.